So, what if you could solve a country's landfill crisis and decarbonize one of its biggest industries? At the exact same time? It sounds almost too good to be true, right? Well, in Thailand, a really powerful idea is taking shape that could do just that: turn a massive trash problem into a real climate solution. Let's break down how it all works.
Now, you might be wondering, where is all this information coming from? Well, it's not just theory. Everything we're about to go through comes from a recent, super important workshop. It brought all the key players to the table. We're talking industry leaders, government officials, technical experts, all of them focused on mapping out a real path for change.
So, here's our game plan. First, we're going to get a handle on the sheer scale of Thailand's trash and carbon problem. Then, we'll look at the really clever solution that's on the table. After that, we have to talk about the roadblocks holding it all back, explore a clear action plan, and finally, wrap up with why this matters for all of us, not just Thailand. To really get this story, you have to understand that we're dealing with two massive environmental challenges at once. They're like two sides of the same coin. On one side, you have an overwhelming amount of waste, and on the other, you have some serious industrial emissions.
Okay, check this number out. Every single year, Thailand produces 27.2 million tons of municipal waste. That is just a staggering amount of trash. And where it all ends up is, as you can guess, a huge part of the problem. So where does it all go? Well, about 40% gets utilized in some way, which is great, but that means a massive 60% doesn't. 40% gets dumped in landfills, which are overflowing and contaminating soil and water. And that last 20%, it's just mismanaged. It's not just inefficient, it's a full-blown environmental crisis in the making. And here's that other side of the coin I mentioned, the cement industry. It's absolutely crucial for building the country's infrastructure, no doubt about it, but it comes with a high price tag. It's one of the top 3 biggest sources of CO2 emissions in all of Thailand. So you've got this huge trash problem and a huge carbon problem just running side by side.
But what if, and this is the cool part, what if these two giant problems could actually be used to solve each other? Let's dive into the brilliant concept that does exactly that.
The solution has a name. It's called co-processing. The idea is actually pretty simple, but incredibly powerful. You take all that non-recyclable municipal waste and you process it into something called refuse-derived fuel, or RDF for short. Then you burn that fuel in cement kilns instead of coal. So you're getting rid of waste and cutting down on fossil fuel use. It's a 2-for-1 deal. And here's why co-processing is so darn effective. A cement kiln is incredibly hot. We're talking around 1,450 degrees Celsius. That's way hotter than your standard waste incinerator. At that temperature, any toxins in the waste are almost completely vaporized, and there's no toxic ash left over to deal with. Any residue just becomes part of the final cement product. It's just a much cleaner, more complete way to handle waste. And the potential climate impact? It is massive. Get this. For every single million tons of waste that gets co-processed, you avoid up to 1.5 million tons of CO2 equivalent emissions. That's a huge win because you're replacing coal and you're preventing all those emissions from the landfill. This really is a potential game changer for hitting climate targets. Okay, so if the solution is this elegant and the impact is this huge, why isn't it happening everywhere right now? Well, this is where things get a little tricky, because there are some very real roadblocks in the way. And that was really the million-dollar question for the experts at that workshop. You see, the path from a great idea to actually getting it done on a large scale is unfortunately blocked by a whole web of challenges. First up, you've got the legal hurdles, and this is a big one. Under current Thai law, this specially processed refuse-derived fuel is still legally considered waste, not a fuel. That single definition creates a huge domino effect of problems, from ridiculously complex permit processes to total confusion across different government agencies. There's just no clear legal category for RDF to fit into. Then, of course, you have to follow the money. Right now, government incentives are set up to favor building old-school waste-to-energy plants, not co-processing. On top of that, making this RDF can actually be more expensive than just buying cheap coal. And the local municipalities, they just don't have the budgets to invest in the fancy machinery you need to produce high-quality RDF. And finally, you run into the practical, on-the-ground headaches. There isn't a national standard for what makes good RDF, so cement plants kind of have to make up their own rules.
Transporting this stuff over long distances is expensive, and now other industries are starting to want RDF, so there's competition. Plus, the cement guys worry that if they use too much of it, it might mess with the quality of their final product.
This quote from the workshop just nails it. It really sums up the biggest hurdle of all. It's about perception. As long as policymakers and the public see waste as just a problem to get rid of, instead of seeing it as a valuable resource that's waiting to be used, progress is always going to be slow. That mindset shift is absolutely key. So, faced with all these roadblocks, did the stakeholders just give up? No way. They rolled up their sleeves and actually built a roadmap for how to move forward. This is their action plan. In this action plan, it tackles all those problems head on. Step 1, fix the law. Officially recognize RDF as a fuel, not waste. Step 2, create a national standard for quality so everyone's on the same page. To solve the money issue, offer financial incentives like tax breaks. The plan also calls for making the permit process way simpler, encouraging public-private partnerships, and finally, letting these projects generate valuable carbon credits.
Okay, so this is a plan for Thailand, obviously, but the lessons here and the potential of this whole model, well, they have implications that go far, far beyond one country's borders.
What we're really looking at here is a perfect, real-world test case for what's called the circular economy. It's all about redesigning our systems so there's no such thing as waste. What was once a liability that we buried in the ground becomes a valuable resource that powers our industries and helps us fight climate change. If this can be scaled up, it's a powerful blueprint for industries all over the globe. And that really leaves us with the big final question. The technology is there, the benefits for the economy and the environment are crystal clear, but making it happen for real requires this unprecedented level of teamwork between government regulators, private industry, and local communities. So can they all align their interests to finally unlock the treasure that's hidden in our trash? The answer to that is going to define the future of sustainable industry.